Okay, that last recording seems to have behaved itself, so welcome back. Sorry if that got a little bit tedious, but that was basically me trying to lay out my intentions as well as I could in a relatively decent time at a nice leisurely pace while just kind of showing off the barest elements of this thing. And now that the very basic what is this guy doing talking over this old video game stuff is settled, I don't have to worry about that and I can start actually appreciating it at my own pace. Now, I think I forgot to say in the last video, it doesn't really matter. I actually recorded a few levels already. I messed up the sound on just the first one, so this is my second run of that, which I don't really mind. It allows me to do a more refined introduction, and beyond that, I can just, with the introduction sorted and I don't have to worry about troubleshooting sound or anything this time, I can do it at a far more relaxed pace. So we're back on this introductory sequence. The whole ship is kind of falling apart, as you can see. This man is going to lead us now, and the scene was kind of, I let that first cutscene play out, but I'd understand if you are very confused. Humanity is fighting a war in the future. We are this kind of futuristic military Starship Troopers society, but we're also losing. We're fighting these weird aliens, they're different races, they're a team, and the very quick rundown is that the aliens have more technology than us, but they're also kind of backwards. They're religious fundamentalists. And we are a very rational and reasonable society, and we're pretty good on tech, but we're still losing. They had the head start on space settlement and technology. We're fighting for our lives, and things aren't going too great. And we are kind of the best chance of humanity. We're from the Super Soldier program, and we're in one of the best ships, and we're going to talk to the artificial intelligence supermind, which coordinates the war effort. It's all very interesting and compelling, and I'll get into what all of it means in just a minute. I'm again going to let the game speak for itself for about a minute here. Please bear with us while this plays.
Captain Keyes.
Good to see you, Master Chief. Things aren't going well. Cortana did her best, but we never really had a chance.
A dozen Covenant superior battleships against a single Halcyon-class.
I'll speak a little here, you've got the subtitles. There's a lot I want to go into. The game is a bit cutscene heavy just at this very start, and that will basically stop very soon. I'm much happier with the pace that we set in about second level onwards, basically. I'm very happy with the pace we got and the way things played out and what I was saying. I know a lot of the things I want to talk about were talked about there, so I'm not really fussed or anxious about getting ideas out. Again, I feel pretty relaxed now. I'm just a bit anxious about this opening pace. I don't want you to get bored in these early days. I'll explain some more basic stuff here that I admire about this thing. One more general idea I'm going to be defaulting to constantly in this, and then I'll just very casually play through the rest of this, and then you'll have 2 more levels worth of me playing to watch, and hopefully you'll have a pretty good idea of why I like this thing and why I think it's very interesting and what I think we could be doing with YouTube for things that we like. So here is these guys talking. This particular fighting retreat is not going well. Time to get out of here, we've got to save Cortana. And I'll talk very briefly about all of this confusing lore in just a moment. Got to take Cortana with us. Evasive maneuvers, that's very nice. Cortana looks very cool. I'll talk about her in a moment. Again, it's kind of unfortunate how front-loaded this game is, but it is very loose and open-ended, pretty much from now onwards, so again, I just don't want you to get bored, so I'm talking over this. Sorry if you're trying to listen. You can always watch the cutscenes on your own time, or even better, play the game yourself. I do recommend that, and if this makes you interested and want to play it yourself, that would make me very happy. Okay, the game has relented and handed control back to me. I think there's actually some banter there that you might not hear. We get a gun in just a moment. Now. And we are set. We have Cortana, the artificial intelligence, inside our head, and we have to continue the fighting retreat against the aliens. There is Halo the Ring, and rather than rushing off, 2 things I would like to talk about. One, how the game looks. Two, the very general overview of the lore and my reading of it. We'll start with the lore, actually. The artificial intelligence is named Cortana. You may know, I believe even that fool Mandalore Gaming brought this up in his marathon reviews. If you watch those, better if you haven't, probably. Bungie has some literature guys on its team. It's an interesting balance of STEM and literature graduates producing this project. And that's all very much allusions to kind of Arthurian or chivalric myth, the Cortana thing. Cortana is the name of a sword in the chivalric tradition. It's very much Cortana is the weapon of a knight, but that's not the extent of this. It's not just, oh, well, what do you call a weapon? You draw a name of a weapon from history. Isn't that prestigious? No, it's lots of things are named after things in Halo, and very briefly, we are from a super soldier program called a Spartan. The AI is called Cortana, but there are more allusions coded into Cortana than just that she is named after something from a chivalric saga. Something I noticed independently and then confirmed when I read a novelization of Halo. It's not actually a novelization of this game, it is a prequel. That's another interesting detail. Halo was actually multimedia before it was a game, is that Halo was very much intended to be bigger than this, very, very big, high concept. They were writing novels and making the game at the same time, and anyway, Cortana's origin story is that she was born of a kind of brain cloning operation, which you may see where that's going. The idea is that she sprung from the mind of her creator, which is, if you know your mythology, the origin of Diana, the goddess of... No, I'm sorry, that is the origin of Athena, who sprung from the mind of Zeus, literally from his head, and Cortana is the cloned brain of a genius rendered inside a computer. She literally sprang from the mind of her progenitor, the physical mind. That is an interesting incidental detail, which becomes more interesting as it becomes layered with the rest of the illusions. We have Cortana, who is Athena, who is commanding a Spartan in a future war, and we are on a ship called the Pillar of Autumn, which is a name lifted from English poetry, and all of the spaceships have names like that. So there is this interesting, very deliberate invocation of a running continuity between these high Western warrior and civilized warrior traditions, from Sparta and Athens kind of cooperating, wisdom riding on the fighting arm of the warrior. It's, again, a kind of educated, perfected warrior with perfect wisdom commanding him. And then this ship, which is a kind of achievement of high civilization with its British name. And again, the Diana is rechristened as Cortana, which is a chivalric name. You may see where that's going. Bungie are invoking a kind of universal Western warrior tradition, which is kind of the drive which everything which humanity is doing which is good and powerful and a source of greatness has in common. There is this kind of seamless transition of, it doesn't bother anybody that this kind of Northern European Christian empire, this fierce pagan warrior culture and its strange myths and goddesses, and then the kind of weird in-between of the chivalric tradition, which is, depending on who you ask, a kind of odd continuation of the Indo-Europeanism, kind of rendered into a more primal, primitive, strange, eccentric form. What Halo is getting at is there is a kind of easy continuity within all of that, and we are the kind of bleeding edge of that tradition in the very far future. There is a kind of primal Western warrior religiosity tradition running through all of this, which Halo is constantly invoking. But that is only half of the religious imagery which Halo invokes. The other half is, of course, there is Halo, which is a ring, Abrahamic. But the rather interesting spin is that beyond that we lift details from civilizations which were incidentally Christian, the Pillar of Autumn is not really a Christian image, but the British were Christians. Everything that is not human, which is alien, basically, in Halo is very Abrahamically coded. We are fighting the Covenant, who are holy warriors, who are very explicitly motivated by superstition and dogma. They are not a rationalistic race despite their technology. They are not secular. They are very much driven by accepted and drilled dogma. And everything about them is very Abrahamic in naming convention and how certain things look. It's very much... Pardon me for one moment. I'm sorry, just clearing my throat. It is very much this idea that humanity is this underlying kind of not too fussed, very efficient, hardline warrior tradition of the West, while these aliens that we are fighting, they are this kind of strange Abrahamic coalition which takes on imagery, names, and ideas and concepts from basically everything from Judaism, Christianity, and Islam kind of all rolled together. Where I'm going is that Halo, as far as I know, nobody has invoked this before, really tried to focus in on it. Halo is this strange story of humanity kind of discovering itself and, you know, when chips are down, everything goes all in on this kind of... War is this enfranchising, purifying, driving experience, and what it brings out in humanity is a leaning on this stuff which you can rely on. It's not an aesthetically dead or like purely utilitarian aesthetic which humanity has, but it's very hardline, very purified by fire warrior cult stuff, and the idea is that it all comes together within this. Again, we are the bleeding edge of the warrior tradition. It goes from Sparta and Athens to the chivalric knight to the British Empire to the super soldier with an AI in his head. I find that extremely interesting. I'm sorry I said this would be very much grounded in the experience of the game, and now I've gone and hit you with this abstract lecture. Not too much drawing on what we're looking at, but I assure you that will start to drop off as I play the game and I can deal with things which are more immediate. The great thing about this is I can back and forth as well, and you can always just listen to me as a podcast or skip when I'm boring and watch what I have to say about shooting things. And I do have a fair bit to say on that as well. Maybe. We'll see. Other really big thing I have to bring up, which is going to be a constant focus of this, you may have seen from the menus before I hit play in the first video, this is the most modern incarnation of Halo. It all looks the same in-game, but this is the Master Chief Collection, which they did about 12 years after the initial release, or 10, and what I can tell you about that is, they let you play the game as is, and they remastered how it looks. And that has a very interesting effect of, you can see two different teams, two sets of visual sensibilities, representing the same concepts on the same three-dimensional virtual skeleton of the world. I'll explain what that means right now. This is the only game where you can do this. It is an absolutely incredible feature, which is extraordinarily useful for this kind of live lecturing format which I'm doing. Watch what happens when I hit this button. Oh my god, isn't that horrific? You can see the game through the eyes of a 2010s team trying to think, okay, how do we make this cool and modern? And here is the sensibilities of 2002 Bungie. Now, it's a very strong conviction of mine that video games didn't really get better from pretty much this point onwards, especially in the West, America, whatever you want to call it. And I think that this constant visual reference is a good reminder of what went wrong. You can see Bungie had a certain taste and a certain vision here, which was very strong, very striking, very deliberate, and it becomes muddied and ruined very quickly when the kind of poorly thought out generic tastes of this kind of mass marketed thing are painted on top of it. It very quickly falls apart. Again, as I said, the austerity, this is something I'll be able to get into in later levels when we contrast with alien architecture. Austerity is a very deliberate theme within this idea that humanity is very much... The instincts of a high civilization are not towards ornamentation, and visual clutter is a point which I will elaborate on with references in the future, but just at the very baseline, the vision of the future Bungie have, which is very much a STEM man's vision, a cultured man's vision, is things work, They're very clean, they're very efficient looking. Everything is lean, mean, built to do its job, and the taste is very Protestant, sparse, utilitarian, whatever you want to call it. Very focused. And meanwhile, if you ask some mediocre men from the 2010s to make Halo look more cool and modern, look what they do. They turn every single surface in the game into some kind of gaming PC full of horrific superfluous detail, and as Lindy Man told us, Paul Scallis, the gaming PC aesthetic is really the kind of 2000s MMA shirt aesthetic. It's the taste of a meathead moron. This is not how a high civilization looks. Bungie's success, how striking and lastingly impression-making this is, it's not incidental, it's all very well thought out. It's not that Bungie couldn't make it look like this, it's that they didn't want to because this is very stupid. Look, even the Ring is a gigantic circular gaming PC now. It is absolutely horrid. Look at how much meaningless detail there is there. It looks like this rickety piece of junk covered in strange hydraulics and pipes all along its outside, as opposed to this very imposing pyramid-like solid slab structure which it has there. I'll get into a lot of that as we go. The fact that things are grey and rectangular is actually extremely important in relation to certain details we'll get into later. But again, I think I have kind of teased you very badly by saying this is going to be a very physically oriented, play-oriented experience, and then I'm stuck inside this room looking into space and making you just listen to me lecture about things we're not looking at. I'll actually go on from here and play the game. Thank you if you've been watching so far. You've been very patient, very good to me. Things should hopefully get more watchable, but I also hope you find this watchable, and if so, thank you, and we're about to keep going in one moment.